This is Delhi. Please stand by for our next program. This is All India Radio. In our national program of talks tonight, we bring you a panel discussion entitled Discovering Wellness for Body and Mind. The panelists are Ms. Meena Gupta, leading wellness therapist, Apurva Saxena, well-known Hatha Yoga guru, Dr. Jatin Tarwani, clinical psychiatrist, and Vikram Bahal, media personality who initiates and moderates the discussion.
Welcome to the National Program of Talks. Our subject today is discovering wellness for body and mind. Wellness is just not the absence of disease. In fact, health is a state where complete physical, mental, and social well-being are looked at. But how can we assess our situation as to where we stand on our mental and physical state and make changes that not only make us a bit better, but create synergy between the mind and body and increase our quality of life exponentially? To shed light on the subject today, I have with me Meena Gupta, a leading wellness therapist, Apurva Saxena, a Hatha Yoga guru, and Dr. Jatin Tarwani, a clinical psychiatrist. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Before we start, I must say a little something about our subject today. Mental health is something that has been looked at, and we will, of course, look at how mental and physical health are intertwined and how we can improve both by concentrating on one and the other. We must not forget that this is not a substitute for professional medical advice. And before embarking on any alternative therapy or practice, you must consult a medical doctor or a practitioner. And self-help is important, but under medical advice. Dr. Jatin, what I just said is an important part of any sort of new therapy that people are looking at, or alternative medicine, as it is called. How do you see this in today's context? Because there are two broad areas, in my view. One is something that requires only professional treatment, which is actually a disease that cannot be just, maybe it can be helped by alternative therapy, but cannot be treated alone by alternative therapy. And there's a second area, which is an emergency, where you do need immediate medical intervention in some cases. How do you see that?
The way I see it is that the alternative therapies, they've always been there for the last thousands of years. So there are more than maybe 100 alternative therapies. They've always been popular, but with the advent of modern medical science, which is based on primarily evidence-based practice. Evidence means it has been tested and tried and experimented on thousands of people, and the results have been collated. And after that, anything is called a modern medicine. The same level of evidence-based is not there with complementary or alternative therapies.
But they do help or in some way support
Definitely
your therapy. But my point is that what is your advice to people if they think that they are having a mental and physical issue? How should they assess whether they really need to take immediate action, medical assistance, or should they first try alternative systems?
First, I'll see the evidence for the particular disease if a person is having. However, if the disease is on a milder spectrum, or maybe the disease is on the recovery part, then if the person wants to see the possible benefits of any kind of alternative therapy, I would advise that the person may try. And there is largely no harm associated with alternative therapies. But at the same time, because my knowledge in this subject is limited, because there are hundreds of alternative therapies, it's not just yoga. It's not just acupressure or acupuncture or Reiki or moxibustion or some other kind of therapy. Because of my limited knowledge, I cannot always prescribe from my own side that the person should go for the same. However, because of the popularity and because of the largely absence of any side effects, and if the person is on the milder spectrum, then he can definitely
You could recommend them. Meena, today, especially after this very difficult phase of COVID, you have found people suffering from stress, new types of depression, some sort of depression that is brought on by living alone in confined spaces, meeting people very rarely, possibly also having fear of contamination and disease. How do you treat these situations?
Well, firstly, I would like to say it is complementary therapies. We complement the allopathy system. We don't say that we are substituting it with complementary therapies, So yes, like Jatin said, that it is important to go to a psychiatrist, to see an assessment, to make an assessment, and then come to us, And also the other way around. If the person comes to it, the patient comes to me, and I see that he or she needs psychiatric treatment because he's
So you would
suicidal.
recommend the person.
Absolutely, there's no way. And along with that, we will do complementary therapies so that your issue with medication and complementary therapies is being resolved. So that was the first thing that I wish to clarify. The second thing you asked me was in the pandemic. Yes, there has been a lot of loneliness. In fact, I must have done about 30 Zoom sessions during the pandemic, dealing with grief and loss, dealing with loneliness, dealing with hyperactivity with children. There has been so much that has been happening in the COVID. And that is where when they understood that doing, like ma'am says here, yoga, pranayam, breathing exercises, doing art therapy, doing music therapy, going into a session of breathing exercises, going into, learning a hobby, all that has helped them to relax their mind and body so that they are able to cope with whatever issues they are going with. Like doctor says that it is a sync between the mind and the body. The mind and the body has to be in sync. It is just not the mind or it's just not the body.
And one of the factors that keeps the body and mind in sync is physical activity. So, Apurva, in fact, you are practicing Hatha Yoga and you teach people how to master the various aspects of yoga. You also have a personal experience, I believe, in this area. What is your view as to how exercise and specifically yoga could be used by people to target certain of these problems like stress, which is not perhaps to the level where they need medication, or even if they do need mild medication, as Jatin just said, it could complement the medication. What do you have to say? What is your view on that?
So first of all, I would like to say yoga is not a form of exercise. The entire world thinks that just standing on the head or walking on hands is yoga. Yoga is a way of living. And it not just trains your body, it directly trains your mind. So for example, if I ask you to stand on one leg, which is suppose a balancing pose, Vrikshasana, so you're not just working on your body, you're directly working on your mind to stabilize it. And your mind doesn't have the scope to think about anything else. You realize that for a minute of Vrikshasana holding, my mind had zero thoughts. So while we do postures, we bring that awareness on the breath and the body, and the mind gets absolutely clear and empty. And they don't realize that 1 hour of asana, pranayam practice actually cleanse their entire negative thoughts away, and they feel relaxed and really calm. And at the end of the session, they say, ma'am, we feel revived and we didn't remember the kind of stress we were going through last night or the fight or arguments we had. So 1 hour of class has an impact for the whole day. And then they keep coming again, and it becomes really happily addicting that they get healthy mentally. And if I get any case where someone complains of hyperanxiety, so first of all, I seek their symptoms and I check their symptoms, because I had a past history of anxiety and a manic disorder in 2008. And yoga, especially pranayam, helped me manage my thoughts and the overthinking. But if a student tells me, ma'am, I'm getting hallucinations, I'm getting excessively negative thoughts and my sleep pattern has been bad, I tell them, please consult a psychiatrist. There are things that are out of our hand. We are not doctors, we are therapists.
That's right. But coming back to exercise, Jatin, what Apurva just said was really what you would call muscular and mental coordination. And exercise, I believe many psychiatrists would recommend regular exercise because it gives you a sense of achievement. It actually brings your body into sync. So how important do you see regular exercise and perhaps alternatives like yoga, breathing exercises, and all these things put together? Where would you stand on that?
One has to just not do exercise for a single day, but it has to be a lifestyle thing. Whether it is yoga, whether it is exercise or any other thing.
But is there a difference? Because if you do exercises like running or yoga, they're quite different in the way that they, some of them may at the end give you the same results, but they're quite different in their approach.
They are different in their approach, and they are different in the outcome when physical outcomes are concerned. For example, how your body will be after 2 years of exercise or after 2 years of yoga. The physical outcome will be different. However, the mental outcomes are largely similar. They will give you the same amount of happiness, both the things, same amount of contentment, same amount of increase in the self-esteem, same amount of improvement in the concentration.
If I were to ask you, how many minutes a day of exercise do you recommend a person should take?
Usually I recommend that person should start slowly. You should start, let's say, 15 minutes a day of walk for first week, subsequently half an hour of walk in this next week, and subsequently 45 minutes of minimum walk. And then if a person is able to make this much of schedule of 45 minutes, he should continue with it. That is the aerobic exercise largely. But on top of it, if the person has developed this much ability that he is able to do 45 minutes of exercise, then he should add further anaerobic exercises to complement the aerobic exercises. That is a usual package.
Meena, how do you see this? What exercises would you recommend?
What we do is offer a bouquet of therapies in a customized fashion. Like if a person is going to an OPD clinic, they will know what is the issue the person is coming with and what is it that we need to offer them. Similarly, I integrate my therapies according to the need of the person who's brought into my client, into my office. And once he done a counseling session with him or her, I've understood now this is what they need to do. Whether it is clinical hypnotherapy that I need to do along with music therapy. So this is a bouquet of therapy that I'm offering them.
Yes, but I'm talking of exercise to start with. How important is it in your view?
Exercise, of course, is very important. But what I do is I exercise the mind and the body more. So exercising the body is very important, like the two of us have said here. But is to exercise the mind, is to take the negativity to a positivity. Is where I train them. I train them to exercise their mind, how to go from the negative to the positive.
I was reading up and it said too much of exercise can actually put stress on the body and lead to mental stress and anxiety. So is that a fact? Too much exercise is not a good idea?
There is a concept called exercise addiction. And addiction is always seen in a negative manner. So any exercise that is done beyond the usual capacity, it will put strain on the ligaments, tendons, bones.
And also on the mind?
Definitely on the mind. Some bodybuilders are doing excessive amount of exercises. And because of the same, they have to appear in a certain way. They have this fear that I'm always looking thin, though they have developed 22 inches of biceps. Because of the same, they continue to do exercise, stimulate their bodies and continue to take stimulant drugs. And
Jatin, you brought up a very interesting point. And that is something called body image. Meena, do you get people coming to you saying that they have problems with body image?
Absolutely.
And that is a big stress. It becomes a mental problem.
Absolutely.
How do you tackle it?
Yeah, absolutely. See, the young girl is coming up and saying that, look, I think I'm looking too thin, or maybe I'm too fat, So this is a disorder, an obsessive compulsive disorder that she or she has, It is of the body image, but she's coming up and telling me, look, I think I'm eating too much. I should not be eating too much, or I'm eating too less. So this is a disorder that he or she is coming up.
How do you treat it?
Yeah, so that we go back to the person and talk to him or her. Since when is it that's been happening to you? What was the stressor that made you behave this way?
So you're looking at the triggers.
Yeah, absolutely. The trigger is very important in all the cases that somebody comes in with me. So when was the first time when you picked up a cigarette and started to smoke? When was the first time when you picked up...
Once you get the trigger, what do you do then?
Absolutely. That's when we take them into a state of a trance, a hypnosis, and see where is it that the trigger happened and what is it that they felt at that point of time, And how is it that they can release that stress from that point of time when they first face the trigger, to such an extent that it is now disabilitating them, It is now creating a hindrance in their
through
life.
hypnosis, you will try and find the trigger.
They themselves will. We take them into a state of relaxation. The subconscious takes them to the first trigger, the first time. It could be even down to the mother's wound, Why? What was it that was happening? Why is this a dysfunction?
And how do you actually reprogram the mind then?
Reprogram the mind, the person himself or himself, once he has seen the trigger and come out of it. And that's the time when we're bringing them out, they've understood, okay, now this is the first time when such a trauma happened to me. It was a big trauma that happened to me, And now that I'm out of it, then we give them a lot of exercises, mental exercises. We give them a lot of affirmations for them to exercise with those affirmations by the Havening techniques that we do, which is rubbing the hands very nicely, the palms very nicely, and giving themselves affirmation. I'm now out of that issue that I was facing for such a long day, for some long time, such a long week, such a long month, such a long years,
Apurva, in your case, when you're teaching yoga,
Right.
do you suddenly find that a similar sort of situation happens with body image, but not so much with
Yes.
body image as much with body flexibility, and the people start feeling inadequate, that they cannot do certain things? Does that lead to trouble?
Honestly, now I'm getting more cases for body image than flexibility. People are extremely influenced by social media, following all the leading actresses doing postures, and they want to be like them, look like them. Recently, I'll give you an example. I got a call from a customer asking that I want to look like the leading actress and want to stand on the head and want jawlines like her, collarbones like her. I want beautiful
So it's actually
figure.
leading to stress.
Yes. So I noticed that she was so anxious while speaking. She didn't take a deep breath in between. She was constantly speaking. And even in my classes, when I take my class at the yoga studio, I see people with so much of self-hate and self-criticism. They tell me, ma'am, see, I've got so much fat hair. Ma'am, my arms like so big. They're so bulky. Can you help me reduce them? So first thing I tell them, love yourself. accept your body, accept yourself. And then I use positive affirmation while making them do postures. And I try and make them fall in love with their own body first. And I tell them, you need to stop comparing yourself with anyone else. You can make better choices by eating right, by doing postures. And the moment you start doing yoga, your mind gets programmed to eat right, to drink right, and to sleep right. And the body image issues start going up. And the same girl who complained a month back that she has psoriasis, she has anxiety and PCOD, in a month she told me yesterday that I feel so much better. I've lost inches. I'm sleeping good and my anxiety levels have gone down. For workout, I wanted to add one more thing that you asked with Dr. Jatin. By workouts like HIIT, a stress hormone called cortisol is released. And that brings a lot of negative emotions. It leads to anxiety and anger also. And which, as he said, weightlifters also experience. So it leads to negative effect and they start gaining weight or losing weight. And then the pattern goes absolutely negative.
But Jatin, correct me if I'm wrong. Endorphins are also released when you're exercising. And if you can maintain those levels, it is quite helpful for the mental state.
Yes, it is.
So how do you know when to stop? When you received enough endorphins?
We have to know what is our limit. For example, there is a limit of the heart rate. Let's say the maximum heart rate is 225. If your age is, let's say, 50.
So you minus 220 or 225 minus your age.
Minus
that
age.
is your maximum predicted heart rate.
And
so suppose a person is, let's say, 40 years old.
40 years old, 220 minus 40 is 180, and you have to go maximum up to 80% of that. So it's 80% of 180. Close to it will come to 140 or 145 or so. So you have to wear a heart monitor, or if you're using a treadmill, then the sensors are there. You can monitor your heart rate, or if in Corona, everyone has this pulse oximeter with themselves. So you can go up to that limit. That is the maximum heart rate that you should go to. But this is one thing.
And maintain it for 20 minutes?
Do not maintain it.
Okay.
If you're going to that much top, then just come down. You don't have to go to your maximum heart rate.
No, I mean maintain it in the zone of, let's say, 60 to 80%.
Yes.
And do exercise for 20 minutes? Is that what you recommend?
That I would recommend. But that is only when we are considering only one factor. That is the heart. And that is only the heart rate. Let's say if you have another conditions.
Of course.
Maybe your joints are not well. Maybe you have 20, 30 kgs of weight hanging on your abdomen. Then the exercise recommendation is different.
So let me just take you back to what we were discussing a minute ago on the body shape and the body image problems that people are having. Do you receive a lot of people who have this as a serious, let's say, complex that they need to address?
No, I don't.
You don't.
There is a reason for that. Receive many people who have the body image issues because they primarily go to plastic surgeons or dermatology. They'll get themselves change the shape of their breast, change the shape of their hips, abdomen, tummy tuck, nose job, lip job. They'll go to them. That is the first thing. But some plastic surgeons or dermatologists who are aware of this phenomena called body dysmorphic disorder.
Correct.
They'll first identify, okay, this is the problem which is primarily psychiatric or psychological. The person should first visit a mental health professional. Then only we usually see. Or if somebody has come across any awareness video or any awareness column in the newspaper, then they realize, okay, I have a body image problem. That is primarily a mind problem. I should first visit a mental health professional rather than...
That's very rare in your opinion.
It's not very common.
Yeah. Okay, that comes to a very interesting point where I think many of us today are living online for some part of our lives. So we are watching now a big change take place. The online generation, as I call it, or the world calls it. And there you have virtual gurus coming up from around the world who always come up with something which is different or interesting and make claims sometimes that are unsubstantiated and unverified. The gurus there are offering quick fixes for a variety of mental and physical problems. Let me start with you, Meena. What is your view on this online quick fix generation? How should people assess, evaluate, and decide?
I don't think I have a view on that at all. I would not like to put down anybody and say they're right or wrong, But yes, educate the masses and tell them to educate themselves before they go to one, Like we were talking outside.
So
it is
you
very
would
important
suggest
for us
educate
to,
yourself?
Absolutely. Whether you visit a therapist or a guru or a psychiatrist.
So you're suggesting online should be something secondary first in the physical world visit somebody and talk to somebody in person.
Absolutely. And then, like I said, you should be informed of the consequences of, like we say, that too much of mobile, too much of internet, too much of this is creating a lot of havoc in either not the children, but the adults and even senior citizens like me.
Most therapies are very individual. They're tailor-made for the person.
Absolutely.
Would you agree that it's difficult to take one sort of exercise and say, okay, 30 minutes running, as Jatin just said, there may be somebody who has a joint problem. So 30 minutes of running for that person will not work. Maybe 30 minutes of swimming may work. So what is your view that your suggestion rather, to people who are looking at online, that they should take that with a pinch of salt? They should first go and meet somebody? Is that how you see it?
Absolutely. I read what Jatin said, that, it has to be customized, tailor-made, therapies that we provide, not just running or swimming or one thing or the other. I can only talk about the therapies that I provide, which is bio-guided music therapy, which is art therapy, which is foot reflexology, which is Tibetan bowl therapy, which is a clinical hypnotherapy, So a person who enters, I know that I have a bouquet of therapies and I know what is it that I need to customize with the person. Now, he talked about body dysmorphic disorder, which was a very, very good example, And Nitin very nicely said that you should visit a mental health professional to be able to let him or her judge or assess what the issue is and how big the issue is. And then we provide the customized therapies along with the help of the psychiatrist.
How many people do you get from your online presence?
Lot. In the pandemic now, as you can see...
So it is still a major source
not
of getting
anymore
customers?
Now. There's a lot of walk-ins that are coming in. Before they were coming in, now they are still started to come in again after the pandemic is over.
But let me get you in.
In 2 years, yes, it was most online, yeah.
How do you see this? Online versus the real world?
I would go for offline any day.
So you prefer people coming to you?
Yes. I was taking sessions for very big MNCs for 2 years because people were stressed, and it helped us and everyone a lot. But when it comes to taking classes in the studio, you are able to see people in front. There's a personal touch. There's a human presence felt. So the energy level, the happiness and endorphins, they automatically get released when you enter a beautiful positive aura, or like a beautiful positive space of a studio. They start feeling happy that, okay, we are doing something. A sense of achievement that I did yoga in the studio today is way higher than doing yoga online via Zoom. So this is what my students who are now coming offline told me, that when we were doing yoga online, our postures were corrected, but we didn't feel the effect the way we are feeling it offline. And I have stopped uploading my videos because you need a personal attention. You need a personal trainer to see if the student is doing the posture right or not. Because sometimes a Bhastrika pranayam is not for someone with high BP or anxiety or someone who had a depression history. And in online classes, everyone is doing Bhastrika pranayam. You can't do Bhastrika pranayam if you had a depression history. It will increase it, aggravate it. So this is something that's the quality of yoga teaching online is going really down all over the yoga industry, and I'll always prefer doing the classes offline. My students are in US and they are literally after me to start teaching online again, but I'm still preventing and stopping not to go online.
One size fits all doesn't work.
Yes, I was ready to say that.
What about the other factors like food and sleep? Jatin, where do you stand on that? It's very important that people eat right and sleep enough. And yet, as a psychiatrist, you can only just say that once and send him off. And it is for somebody else to actually then implement that. Do you think alternative therapists can help in that area?
Sleep and appetite, they're primarily when they say that my appetite is too much or appetite is too less, or the sleep is too much or the sleep is too less, or maybe the sleep is fragmented. Then we first see if it is a disorder of appetite or is it a disorder of sleep. Is it a disorder of depression? Because depression have these components of disturbed sleep and appetite. Anxiety disorder has these components of disturbed sleep and appetite. We first see if there is any disorder or not. We try to correct the disorder. We try to give the medicines for the same that will correct all the symptoms, not just sleep and appetite. We suggest certain things on top of the medicines. Let's say you have to follow, there is something called sleep hygiene. You have to sleep 6 hours or 7 hours in the night, sleep at a particular time, wake up at particular time, fix the times, don't watch the wall clock if you're not able to sleep. Do not use mobiles while in the night, do not use any stimulants at the night, do not do any exercise while at the night. Do not stimulate your brain in any way. Use the bed primarily for sleep and not for reading purposes, eating purposes, watching TV, so that the bed get conditioned with the sleep only. So we suggest all these things. And on top of that, if the Usually the person is able to sleep with that, or the appetite improves with certain things. But on top of that, if the person requests, I would want to go to yoga to improve my sleep, I'll say, you're most welcome. Please consult a yoga person. They will teach you certain skills that will help you further.
Meena, what do you say about sleep? How do people manage this? Because I think one of the major problems that happens with present lifestyle is that people tend to, as Jatin just said, watch too much of television in bed or get stressed at the wrong time, get up at odd hours. What is your remedy for sleep?
A very good question, because a lot of people with insomnia have been coming to me, not now, but for long. And from good hospitals, there was a doctor who used to come to me. He says, I've tried everything possible and it has not helped. What do I do? So we have this audio visual where we again take the person into a beautiful relaxed state, and there's a soft music playing, and that is helping him or her to relax. After that, we sit down and ask him or her, what is the trigger? What is it that's happened to you? What is it that you are unable to sleep? Anything that's happened in your life? Yeah, of course it has. I've lost so and so. I've lost a family member. So how do I sort of now sleep? When I close my eyes, I see only him. And see the bed where he has died, see the hospital in which he has breathed his last, And there's a time when we take them into a very relaxed state and help them to overcome their grief that they have gone through,
A quick last thing I want to ask you, and that is something that is also very closely connected with sleep and with mental health. Addiction. People tend to try and take medication to relax, or alcohol or stimulants. Is that a big problem?
When they are coming and they've said that they are alcoholics, that they are into drugs, that they have taken medication for drugs, we tell them, yes, you are in that habit of inducing sleep with drugs. Now, can we do it without drugs? So that it is a commitment between the two of us. And how do we slowly reduce your drugs and take you into relaxation? So you can now start to live without drugs and be in a state of calm without drugs. So it is a therapy based. It takes a little bit of time for them to take them out of those drugs in which they are in, which perhaps is not required,
Apurv, what do you have to say? How do you manage it with yoga?
For addiction cases, we always advise them to follow a healthy sleep regime, and we give them certain breathing practices. Like, for example, there's a candle blow breathing practice where we help them relax and reduce their anxious levels. And with postures, they physically get tired. And along with that, we give them guided meditations. So I personally give audio note of guided meditation, which induces sleep before they go to bed, and it helps.
Jatin, have you seen an increase in the number of cases coming to you with addiction?
The addiction has always been there, but I will not speak about my perspective per se, but if we compare the epidemiological studies that were done 2 decades back as compared to now, the magnitude has definitely increased. Pan-India epidemiological studies have been done, the magnitude has definitely increased. If we just talk about alcohol per se, close to 5 crore people, they are addicted to alcohol. And if I'm saying addiction as a disease, not as a layperson term. It's not just taking it regularly, but facing the consequences on a daily manner, not just physical, but familial, occupational, or psychological consequences. Close to 5 crore people of alcohol, close to, let's say, 20 crore people who are suffering from tobacco addiction, close to 70 lakh people who are suffering from cannabis addiction, 70 lakh people suffering from opioid addiction, and so on and so forth. So the problem is very huge.
But there are solutions, and people should take a positive view and start today. I think that we all agree on.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, on that note, Meena, Apurv, Jatin, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in. Until next time, good night.
In our national program of talks tonight, you were listening to panel discussion entitled Discovering Wellness for Body and Mind. The panelists were Ms. Meena Gupta, leading wellness therapist, Apurv Saxena, well-known Hatha Yoga guru, Dr. Jatin Tarwani, clinical psychiatrist, and Vikram Bahal, media personality who initiated and moderated the program. Produced and presented by Naveen K. Gupta, this program came to you from the Delhi station of All India Radio.